Hello, my name is Ev from Vincent Music, and today we'll be looking at the second half of Romance by Paul Merkus. So, this piece is mostly in the key of F major and its relative minor, D minor. So, before we begin playing this piece, let's get our mind and our fingers into those two keys. So, throughout this lesson, whenever I ask you to play something, I might not leave enough time for you to play it, or you might need to do it a couple of times to get it right. I want you to get it absolutely correct, and don't move on before you have played the scale or the passage exactly correctly. So, if I don't leave enough time, pause the video and then come back to what I was saying. So, let's begin with the key of F major. Let's play our F major scale. Let's do it in more than one note in a breath. So, or take as many breaths as you need. You'll go. Lovely. Now, let's play D harmonic minor. So, what are the notes in D harmonic minor? I would like you to pause, see if you can say all of them, and then I will tell you what they are. So pause. Okay, so the notes are D, E natural, F, G, A, B flat, because we're in the harmonic minor, and then C sharp, and then D, and then it's the same back down. So from the D, we have C sharp, B flat, A, G, F, E natural, D. Let's start with just the bottom octave. Now your turn. Now, I would like you to play the same scale, but do it for 2 octaves. So, let's figure out. So we have the bottom octave, D, E, F, da, and then I have the E natural, F, G, A, B flat again, C sharp, D, and then back down. So, I would like you to now pause, play that scale, and then we will come back to another scale. So now let's go to the melodic minor. Now what's different between the harmonic minor and the melodic minor? See if you can articulate some things. Some things that are different is that the melodic minor scale is different on the way up than on the way down. So on the way up, the notes of our D melodic minor, see if you can figure them out with me. We have D, E natural, F, G, A, just like in the harmonic, but then it changes with the melodic. We go to B natural, and then C sharp, and then D, and then for the second octave, it's the same. And then coming down, so we start on our D, then we come down to a C natural, and then a B flat, A, G, F, E, D, and then continuing C natural, B flat, A, G, F, E, D. So now I will play the scale, and then I would like you to play the scale after me. Now your turn. Lovely. Now make sure that with all of these scales that we've just done, that you've played them exactly right. Even if it's not the first time that you get it right, make sure that you've played it exactly correctly, all the correct notes, and remembering to do multiple notes in one breath. You don't have to do the full octave like I did, but try and get at least 4 notes in one breath before taking a breath. So now let's turn to Romance, and we're going to start at bar 17. That's the second half, that's the 5th line of this piece. So when we play this piece, remember we always want to have a metronome ticking in our mind so that we play all of the minims for exactly a minim, and we play all of our crotchets for a full crotchet, and we don't cut anything short. It's okay if you have to cut a note short to take a breath, but make sure that we don't start the next note early. That's really important in music. So let's start with just the 5th line of this piece from bar 17. So I want you to have in your head exactly what the notes are, have what the rhythm should be, and I would like you to play it first and see whether you get the right rhythm, the right notes and everything, and then sort of pause and play that, and then I will play it and you can compare and see whether they are the same. So pause now. And I hope it sounded a bit like this. So I hope that you had that rhythm and those notes, and remembering in the 3rd bar of that line, what kind of scale, what are the notes of the scale that we've just done, or which scale that we've just played is those notes from? Which one? It was the ascending version, or the going up of the D melodic minor. It was those notes, not starting from the D and crossed over the octaves, but that's the same notes. And that's why we practice our scales before we play these pieces, because a lot of the notes in the scale are exactly the same in these pieces. Now, let's work through this next 4 bars, starting from bar 21, I believe. So remember that this is all quavers. It's 3 bars where every note is a quaver in length. We'll talk about the breathing in a moment, but let's just work on getting all of the notes exactly correct. So we're going to go 4 or 5 notes at a time. So we will play the first 5 notes, and then we'll go back a note, and then play 5 notes, back a note, and play 5 notes. This is how we're going to practice to learn what these notes are. So I will demonstrate what I mean, so that's a little bit clearer. So and then we get to our minims. So I would like you to do what I just did a few times. You might even want to do the same set of 5 notes a few times in a row, so like this. For instance, and then you keep going. Remember, before you do this, you want to do it at a tempo where you get all of the notes correct. You don't want to keep playing the same wrong note over and over again, because then you just get the wrong notes in your muscle memory, come back to your lesson, and you'll be like, why are you playing this wrong note? And that's no fun. So go slowly enough that you get all the notes correct, and make sure that you're thinking. So have a bit of a finger out beforehand, and then have a go, and do the exercise. So 5 notes, go back 1, 5 notes, go back 1, and repeat each set of 5 notes until you get it correct a few times. So pause now, do that. Alright, I hope that was helpful for you playing those notes and getting your fingers over what those notes are. Now, let's try and do 9 notes in a row. So similar concept, but we're doing more notes in a row. So it will sound like this. and you can go back and do the same set of 9 notes a few times. Then you go back to the beginning of the bar, and then do the bar to the first note of the next bar, and then start that bar and go on. Now have a pause and have a practice of that. I'm sure that you did a great job. So now let's talk about where we're going to breathe, because we can't get through all of that in one breath. I'm going to suggest a place which I think is a good place to breathe, because remember, this is a 4-bar phrase. Even though there are 3 bars of quavers and then we have 2 minims, they all go together. If we look at all of the other, in the rest of the piece, each line is 4 bars, but the lines don't really determine what the music is. But it makes sense to do 4 bars in a row, because musically that makes sense. That's where the phrase goes. It's, you know, da ga da ga da 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 ga da ga da da. So it's then a new phrase. So let's talk about where we're going to breathe. Where I think you should breathe is in the 3rd bar of this set. So that's bar 23, I believe, and it is after the A. So it would sound like this. Remember, we've been practicing a little bit slowly, so you can work up to what we've just been doing at a tempo, tempo that you'll play the rest of the piece at, which will make this breathing make a little bit more sense. So that will hopefully work. And remember, even though we've been playing so the 5th line at mezzo forte, you can come back a little bit here, so you're playing a bit more piano, so then it also gives you space to go with the crescendo in bar 23. So I will play it one more time, what I would like your breathing to be, and then I would like you to have a go trying with that breathing. It's okay if it doesn't quite work, but remember, we don't like taking breaths in between quavers, because they're always going to be late. They're always going to delay it. But sometimes we can't physically do what we have to do. So we sort of take shortcuts and take a breath as quickly as you can. So it will sound like this. So now have a pause and have a go of doing that breathing. Lovely. Yeah, just do your best. And remember, play more softly if you need to try and get through to that breath. So now let's look at the next bar. What can you notice about these next 8 bars or so? Or the next 4 bars especially. The next 4 bars are basically exactly the same as 4 bars that we've learnt earlier in the piece. But we've got that A at the start, right beforehand, but then from there, the notes are the same. So this won't take a lot of learning. It's not a lot of new notes, which makes our lives a lot easier. So let's practice starting with the A and then going up and then going down. So it will sound. Obviously the notes are not quite exactly the same, but the first 2 bars are, and then you've done those sets of notes in a different spot in the piece, so we're just combining 2 sections together. So now it's your turn. Okay, so remember, if you didn't quite get it in that time, take a pause, practice that. But now, let's come to the last 4 bars of this piece. What do we notice about them? What patterns of notes are they? What scales do they belong to? Have they shown up anywhere else in the piece? See what you can remember about them. So in the first bar, we have the notes of, it's really of 2 scales that we've practiced earlier today, it's from F major, but it's also the descending version of the melodic minor going down, because those are the same notes. So it can be from either of those, and the rhythm is also the same as rhythms that we've seen all throughout this piece. The second last bar of the piece is exactly the same as one that we've worked on but earlier today in the fifth line, the third bar of the fifth line. And that is what scale is it from? Do you remember? It's from the melodic minor, D melodic minor, going up. So these are all scales and patterns of notes that we've learnt and we're familiar with because we've practiced them earlier today. So now let's have a go of putting all these patterns together in a slightly different context. So it will sound like this. Now, before you play, yes, this is a few notes, but I also want you to really try and keep that metronome going in your head. Make sure that your minims are a full 2 minims, your crotchet is a crotchet, and yeah, make sure all of the rhythms are correct. Now, have a play. Great work. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put all of those 4 lines, the last 4 lines of this piece, the second half, all together. So I would like you to have a go at it. Remember, keep all of the rhythms in your head, all of those notes that we've just learnt. And the really important part is also to remember to keep the rhythm going. So always have a metronome going in your head, because it's easy if you have a metronome going to keep in time, but you have to remember to have that metronome in your head first. So I'd like you to have a play, and then I will have a play, and you can compare, see what's different. So pause now, have a play. Okay, and now I will have a play and compare them and see if they're the same. Now, I hope that those are the same, but very quickly, what is that symbol over the last note? Do you know what it is? It's a fermata, or a pause, which basically just means hold the note for longer. That makes sense, especially at the end of pieces, where you can just be like, yes, this is the end, I'm holding this note, and now we're finished. So hold that last note for as long as you can, but don't die running out of air. So that is all for today. So we looked at the second half of Romance, and what did we learn? We learnt, we started with our scales. So we started with F major, D harmonic minor, and D melodic minor. We remembered to always have a metronome going in our head while we play. And we also learnt some ways to practice tricky scales. So we did a set of 5 notes, and then you go back, do a set of 5 notes, go back 1 note, do a set of 5 notes. And if you need to repeat those sets of 5 notes, do that to make sure that they're always correct. We always want to make sure we're practicing the right notes and not some set of wrong notes. And then once you've done the set of 5, go back to set of 5, you do a set of 9, so that's a bar and 1 note, and then you do, starting from that bar, a bar and 1 note. And the reason that we do that is so we practice the transition between them. It also just makes sense to finish on the first note of a bar. And then we learnt the last 4 lines of the piece, the last 2 lines of the piece, and how they are similar to other things that have happened throughout the piece, and then hold the last note for as long as you would like. We will have a look at this next week, and happy practicing.